Okay, ready to dive into some seriously futuristic AI news.
I'm always ready.
We've got robots learning to fall gracefully, bionic hands that can actually feel, and get this, self-driving cars gossiping like a digital neighborhood watch.
You're not kidding. It's a wild week for AI advancements. What strikes me is how this goes way beyond AI just performing tasks.
Right.
We're seeing a shift towards AI that can reason, adapt, and even interact with the physical world, more and more human-like every day.
Okay, I gotta admit, I'm both excited and a little intimidated by all this. Remember how I'm always joking about wanting a robot butler? Well, this week's news makes it feel like we're getting closer.
I think we are, and it starts with making AI more understandable, right?
Yeah, makes sense.
Remember all the buzz around those giant language models like ChatGPT?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Well, OpenAI had just released GPT 4.5, and it's their biggest one yet.
Wow, even bigger.
It's focused on accuracy, cutting down on those AI hallucinations.
The ones where it just makes stuff up.
Yes.
Yeah, I saw a headline about that. So does this mean AI responses are going to be even more convincing? I mean, I already have trouble sometimes telling the difference between AI writing and a human.
It might, but there's a catch. GPT 4.5, while slightly more accurate, is also much slower. And it needs a crazy amount of computing power. It's making people wonder if just making AI models bigger and bigger is really the best way forward.
Yeah, so it's kind of like a supercomputer that's maybe too smart for its own good. It does make you wonder if there's a better way to make AI, I don't know, smarter without needing a whole power plant to run it.
Right, and that's where Anthropic's Claude 3.7 comes in.
Okay, what's that one all about?
Instead of just size, they're aiming for hybrid reasoning. Imagine an AI that can not only give you an answer, but also show its work, step by step.
Wait, seriously?
Yep. Think of it like solving a complex equation.
Whoa. Okay, so I could ask it to write, I don't know, write a poem in the style of Robert Frost, and it wouldn't just spit out some verses. It would actually walk me through how it came up with them.
Exactly. It's like having an AI assistant that's both intuitive and logical.
That's wild. And this transparency thing, that's pretty huge, right? Especially with all the concerns about AI being a black box.
Exactly. We're more likely to trust AI if we can understand how it got to its conclusions.
That makes total sense. It's like, okay, if you can show me your work, I can understand you a little better. So we've got AI that can reason, that's awesome. But what about robots that can actually, move around and interact with stuff in the real world? Any cool breakthroughs there?
Definitely. Amazon just unveiled Alexa++.
Plus? What's the plus mean?
Think of it like their regular voice assistant, Alexa, but with, well, arms and legs, metaphorically speaking.
So what, it can actually DO things now?
Exactly. It can tap into different services to do things for you in the real world, like booking appointments, ordering groceries, even controlling all your smart home devices.
Hold on, are you telling me I could ask Alexa Plus to make me a cup of coffee while I'm still in bed? That's getting seriously close to my robot butler dream.
Haha, it's getting there. But it's not just about convenience, it's a whole new way of interacting with technology.
True. Okay, so what happens if it spills the coffee?
Haha. Well, there are definitely some challenges, like making sure it's safe and reliable in unpredictable environments. But the potential is huge. Imagine robots that can really integrate into our lives.
That's pretty wild. And speaking of robots in action, did you see that video of those humanoid robots like actually stalking a kitchen? It was amazing the way they figured out how to grab different objects.
You're talking about Figure O2 robot?
That's the one.
It's learning super fast thanks to its new AI brain Helix. What's really remarkable is it can understand voice commands and even figure out how to handle objects it's never seen before.
No way. They're not just pre-programmed to do specific things. They can actually learn on the fly.
That's right.
It's like they're developing, dare I say, common sense?
Helix is what's called a vision language action model. It combines visual information with language to perform tasks. You could say, put this box on that shelf, and it could actually do it, even if it's never seen that box or that specific shelf before.
That is crazy impressive. It reminds me of that article you sent about those assistive robots for elderly people.
Yeah, I remember that.
Do you think this Figure O2, is it a step towards robots that could actually help with, elder care?
Potentially, yes. It has the potential to do a lot of different things, which is key for helping people with limited mobility. But there's still hurdles, especially when it comes to safety and reliability in a place like a home.
Yeah, I mean, my house is basically a minefield of clutter and random obstacles. I can only imagine the chaos a robot would face.
Exactly. But as these systems keep learning and adapting, the possibilities are really exciting.
So robots doing chores, maybe someday. No more folding laundry.
We can dream, right?
Sign me up. But seriously, though, it's exciting. But I can't help thinking about the potential downsides, too. Like, what about the ethical stuff? Yeah. Job displacement, privacy concerns, all that.
Absolutely. These are all important questions we need to be discussing as this technology keeps evolving. We have to make sure these advancements benefit everyone, not just a select few.
Totally agree. We can't just ignore those concerns. Okay, so we've got AI that can reason, robots that can move around and handle objects. But what about robots that can actually feel?
You're talking about bionic limbs.
Yeah, exactly.
Some incredible progress there this week, especially with this new bionic hand that can actually sense touch.
I saw a headline about that. A bionic hand that can feel. That's mind-blowing. I always thought prosthetics were more about, movement, not so much feeling.
Traditionally, yes, but researchers at Johns Hopkins University have created this bionic hand that uses, well, all sorts of things, advanced materials, sensors, AI, to actually mimic the feeling of touch.
Wow. So it's not just about picking things up, it's about actually feeling what you're touching.
Yeah.
How does that even work?
It's this amazing combination of engineering and AI. The hand has a network of sensors that can detect texture, shape, how much force is being applied. And those signals get translated into a kind of nerve feedback that goes back to the user's brain.
So they basically close the loop between the bionic hand and the nervous system.
Exactly.
That is incredible. So
Now,
how well does it actually work? Can people really feel what they're touching with this bionic hand?
the results are pretty remarkable. In lab tests, the bionic hand could handle all sorts of objects with a 99.7% success rate.
99.7%? That's crazy good. But, I mean, that's in a lab, right? What about real-world use?
Well, that's the next step. They're refining the technology and doing clinical trials to see how it performs in everyday life.
I can't even imagine what that must be like.
But the potential is huge, not just for people who've lost limbs, but also think about industries like manufacturing, healthcare. Robots that can feel could change how we interact with the physical world entirely.
Okay, so we've got AI that can reason, robots that can move around, bionic limbs that can feel. What's next? Robots that can smell and taste.
Who knows? The pace of innovation is incredible. And speaking of incredible, let's talk about something that could change how self-driving cars learn. Researchers at NYU have figured out a way for these cars to share knowledge with each other.
Wait, like a network of self-driving cars all learning from each other's experiences? That sounds like something out of, like, a sci-fi movie. How does that even work?
It's called cached federated learning, or cached DFL. Imagine a whole fleet of self-driving cars out on the road.
Okay, yeah.
As they drive, each car's AI is constantly learning and updating its understanding of the world.
So they're all gathering data, learning from what they encounter, just like a human driver would, right?
Right. But here's the clever part. When two of these cars are near each other, they can wirelessly exchange their learned models.
Wait, so the cars are sharing their, like, AI brains. Isn't that kind of risky? What if they share bad information?
That's a great question, and researchers have thought about that. They're not sharing raw data, which could be sensitive or, maybe even wrong. They're sharing these abstract learned models. It protects privacy while still allowing them to share what they've learned.
So it's like they're sharing the lessons without revealing any personal secrets.
It's exactly. It creates this caching effect where information can hop from car to car, even if they only meet for a short time. If one car encounters, say, a patch of ice or a sudden detour, all the cars in the network can learn from that and adjust how they behave.
So it's like a collective learning system. The whole fleet gets smarter and safer over time.
Precisely. It could really speed up how quickly we develop and use self-driving cars.
That sounds like a total game changer for the self-driving world.
Oh.
It's a lot to process. From gossiping robots to cars with hive minds, all in a few minutes.
It's true. The pace of advancement is mind-boggling. And it's not just about each individual breakthrough. It's how all these technologies are starting to work together. We're seeing AI, robotics, all these different fields intertwining in ways that we couldn't have imagined just a few years ago.
It's exhilarating and a little scary at the same time. It feels like the future is happening right now, and we're just trying to keep up.
I get that feeling. It's a time of huge change and some uncertainty, for sure, but also incredible opportunity. We have the chance to shape this future, to make sure these technologies are used for good, to solve problems, to make the world a better place.
That's a really good point. It's easy to get caught up in the wow factor and forget about the bigger picture.
Exactly. We need to be asking ourselves the tough questions about the ethics, the impact on society, the long-term consequences. But we also need to be open to the amazing potential these technologies have to improve our lives and solve some of the world's toughest challenges.
Totally. Okay, so we've covered a lot already, but before we move on, there's one more thing I want to hear your thoughts on. Did you see that video of the robots learning to recover from falls? They were tumbling over and getting back up. It was hilarious and impressive all at the same time.
Oh, yeah, you're talking about the research coming out of UIUC?
That's it.
They've developed this algorithm, it's called Human UP, that's teaching robots how to get back on their feet after falling.
Human UP. I love it. It's like they're giving robots that essential human ability to dust ourselves off and get back up when we stumble.
Exactly. It's such a crucial skill for robots if they're going to be out in the real world where, let's face it, falls are going to happen.
Right, exactly. Think about a robot helping out in a home or working in like a disaster area. You can't expect them to stay upright all the time.
Right. Being able to get up after a fall is essential.
Totally. But it's got to be pretty complex for robots to figure out, right?
It is surprisingly complex. Yeah, they need to assess where they are, what the environment is like, and figure out the best way to move to get back on their feet.
So how does this human UP algorithm work?
Yeah.
Is it like a set of pre-programmed instructions?
It's actually much more sophisticated than that. It's a machine learning framework that uses these reinforcement learning techniques.
Reinforcement learning. Didn't they use that to train those AI systems that can beat humans at games like chess and Go?
You got it. Same principle. The AI learns through trial and error, gets rewarded for successful actions, penalized for mistakes.
So they basically let the robot fall over and over again in a simulation until it figures out how to get up. That's got to be a pretty funny blooper reel.
It is pretty funny to watch, but they do it in a simulated environment first, so there's no risk of damaging the real robot. It's like giving the robot a playground to experiment and learn in.
Smart. So how well is it working? Can these robots actually get up from falls reliably?
It's working really well. Human UP has been tested on all sorts of surfaces. Concrete, mud, even snow.
Wow, even snow.
And it's way better than the standard get-up routines that are usually built into robots.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
But what are the bigger implications of this research? What does it mean for the future of robotics?
It's a big step toward making robots more adaptable, more resilient, and ultimately more useful in real-world settings. Imagine robots that can navigate disaster zones, explore other planets, or even help out around the house without needing a human to constantly supervise them.
That would be amazing, truly. Another step towards robots that can actually function in our, let's face it, messy and unpredictable world. And speaking of messy and unpredictable, what about self-driving cars and those unexpected events?
That's a crucial point. No matter how advanced the AI gets, there are always going to be those unforeseen situations that can throw things off.
Right, like a sudden detour, a tree falling in the road, even a flock of birds.
Exactly.
That's when everyone's safety is really at stake. So how are researchers tackling this challenge? How can we make self-driving cars more adaptable and resilient to the unexpected?
One way is to learn from how we humans do it. We're always observing our surroundings, trying to anticipate potential hazards, and adjusting how we behave accordingly.
So are they trying to create AI that thinks more like a human driver?
In a way, yes. Instead of just relying on pre-programmed rules and algorithms, researchers are exploring ways to give self-driving cars a more intuitive understanding of the world.
So they can kind of think on their feet, make split-second decisions when something unexpected happens.
Exactly. One promising approach is to use common sense reasoning.
Common sense reasoning. Isn't that one of the hardest things to program into AI? I mean, it's something we humans do naturally, but it seems so incredibly complex to teach a machine.
It's one of the biggest challenges in AI research for sure, but the potential benefits are enormous. If we can create self-driving cars that truly understand the world around them, that can anticipate potential dangers and react accordingly, it could completely change how safe and reliable autonomous driving is.
I see what you mean. But how do they even begin to program something as subtle as common sense into a machine?
One way is to train these AI systems on tons of data, text, images, all sorts of stuff, so they can learn patterns and relationships that represent common sense knowledge.
So it's like they're teaching AI to, I don't know, read the world like a book, to pick up on all of those subtle cues and patterns that we humans just do naturally.
Exactly. They're giving AI the tools to understand the context of a situation, what other drivers and pedestrians might be thinking, what could happen next.
That's fascinating and sounds incredibly complicated.
Mm.
But if it works, it could really revolutionize self-driving technology.
Mm.
Imagine a world where autonomous vehicles can navigate not just the routes they're programmed for, but all the unpredictable stuff that happens in real life, too.
It's definitely a vision that a lot of researchers are working towards, and with the amazing progress we're seeing in AI and robotics, it might not be as far off as we think.
Well, it's definitely an exciting time to be alive, even if it's a little overwhelming sometimes.
I agree. It's a time of rapid change, but also a time of incredible possibilities. And as we move forward, it's crucial that we approach these advancements with both a sense of wonder and a healthy dose of caution.
Well said.
Welcome back. Before we moved on, we were talking about self-driving cars and how they try to handle those unexpected things that pop up.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Makes me think about those viral videos you see online, those self-driving cars making, well, let's just say questionable decisions.
Haha, yeah, I've seen those.
I remember one where the car just stopped dead in the middle of the road because it thought a plastic bag was an obstacle. It's funny, but also kind of scary, right?
It really shows the limits of where AI is right now. Even with all the progress, self-driving systems still have trouble with how unpredictable the real world is. They depend on really specific rules and data, so when something unexpected happens, it throws them off.
Yeah, it's like they were missing that human instinct to just, go with the flow,
Yeah.
adapt to what's happening.
Exactly. They haven't quite grasped that common sense reasoning thing we were talking about earlier, but there are some researchers working on bridging that gap. One thing that's getting more popular is using neurosymbolic AI.
Neurosymbolic AI. Okay, that sounds pretty intense. What is that exactly?
It's kind of a hybrid approach. It combines neural networks, which are great at recognizing patterns, with symbolic AI, which uses logic and reasoning.
So it's like giving the AI a left brain and a right brain working together.
Exactly. It's like having the best of both worlds.
So the neural networks would be handling like the perception part, recognizing stuff in the environment, and then the symbolic AI would be doing the thinking and making decisions.
Right. By combining the two, researchers are hoping to make AI systems that are much more adaptable, flexible, and able to handle all those unexpected situations.
Okay, that sounds promising, but I'm always curious about the real world applications. How would this work, say, with the self-driving car?
Sure. Imagine a self-driving car is approaching an intersection, but the traffic lights aren't working. A normal AI system might just freeze up, not sure what to do. But a neurosymbolic AI system, it could use its reasoning abilities to understand the situation.
Okay, so you would realize, hey, I'm at an intersection, there are other cars around, and I need to get through this safely.
Right. It would use its common sense, just like a human driver would. Then it could use its neural networks to see what's going on around it, figure out what the other cars are doing, and make a safe decision based on all of that.
Whoa, that's pretty amazing. It really does sound like a huge step forward in making self-driving cars that can handle all the messiness of the real world.
It definitely has the potential. Of course, it's still early days. There's a lot of research still to be done, but it's definitely something to keep an eye on.
Oh, I will be for sure. But okay, switching gears for a second, let's talk about something that just blew my mind. Did you see that thing about the robot that can actually change its shape?
Ah, you mean goatee.
Goatee, yeah. What does that stand for again?
It stands for Good Over All Terrains.
Right, that's perfect, because that's exactly what it does, haha.
It's a great example of bio-inspired robotics. It's fascinating how researchers are taking inspiration from nature to design robots that can handle different environments.
It's seriously like something out of a sci-fi movie.
Yeah.
But how does it work? Does it have moving parts that rearrange themselves or something?
It's actually a very simple but clever design. Goat has this flexible frame made of fiberglass rods and 4 hubless wheels. And it can change its shape using these winch-driven tendons.
Tendons, wow.
It can go from this open, 4-wheeled rover shape into a tight sphere, kind of like an armadillo curling up.
So it can go from a rover to a ball, basically. That is wild. Why would it need to do that?
Well, each shape has its advantages. In rover mode, it's really stable and fast on flat ground. But if it runs into a steep hill or needs to go downhill quickly, it can transform into a ball and just roll down. And to get across water or avoid obstacles, it can stay in that ball shape to swim or bounce.
It's like the Swiss Army knife of robots. I wonder if it can make me a cup of coffee, too.
Maybe not yet, haha. But it's really a testament to how clever the designers are. And what's even more impressive is that Joey uses AI to decide when to morph, based on the terrain and what it's trying to do. It's not just following a pre-programmed path, it's actually making decisions in real time about the best way to travel.
So it's like adapting to its environment on the fly.
Exactly.
That's incredible. Okay, but what are some real-world uses for this? Where could you actually use something like that?
The possibilities are pretty huge. Think about search and rescue robots that can move through rubble, or robots exploring other planets, or even just robots helping with tough tasks here on Earth, like inspecting pipelines or keeping an eye on infrastructure.
Wow, yeah, the potential is pretty much endless. But with all these advances in robotics, what about the robots that are designed to work directly with humans? Are there any new developments there?
Oh, absolutely. One area that's really interesting is in developing robots that can understand and respond to human emotions. It's a field called affective computing.
Effective computing. So we're talking about robots that can basically read our emotions. That's, I don't know, kind of amazing and kind of creepy all at the same time.
I get that. It's definitely a complex area with both potential benefits and ethical considerations that we need to think about carefully. But the overall goal is to make robots that can interact with humans in a more natural, more intuitive way.
Okay, I can see that. Like robots that can tell when you're stressed and change how they behave. Or robots that can provide companionship for people who are lonely.
Exactly. Imagine how beneficial that could be, especially for people who maybe don't have a strong support network.
Yeah, that would be incredible. But how do you teach a robot to, like, recognize and respond to human emotions? I mean, even for us humans, emotions can be so complex and hard to read sometimes.
It's a tough problem, but researchers are making progress. They're using a combination of techniques, analyzing facial expressions, body language, even how someone's voice sounds, and they're training AI systems on massive data sets of human interactions so they can pick up on those subtle cues that indicate different emotional states.
So they're basically teaching AI to be more empathetic. That's a wild thought, that robots could not just understand our emotions, but actually respond to them in a meaningful way.
It's a field with huge potential, but it definitely comes with some ethical questions too. Like, how do we make sure these robots are used responsibly, that they don't try to manipulate or exploit people's emotions?
Right, that's a really important point.
These are all things we need to be discussing as this technology moves forward.
For sure.
Yep.
Okay, well, earlier we were talking about those bionic hands that can feel, and honestly, it's still blowing my mind. I remember you said it was a mix of advanced materials and AI that made it work. Can you explain that a little more? I'm just curious about how they actually got AI into a bionic hand.
Sure. The AI is really the key to translating those signals from the sensors in the hand into something the user's brain can understand. It's not just about detecting pressure or texture. It's about recreating the actual experience of touch.
So the AI is like the interpreter between the sensors and the nervous system, like giving the bionic hand its own brain.
That's a great analogy. The AI algorithms process the data from the sensors, filter out any noise, and create a pattern of nerve signals that the user's brain interprets as touch.
Wow, that's incredible. It makes you wonder, what other senses might we be able to replicate with AI in the future? Smell, taste.
It's an exciting area to think about. Researchers are already working on bionic eyes to restore vision and cochlear implants that use AI to improve hearing. The potential is huge.
This is all so fascinating, but I gotta admit, I'm a little overwhelmed too. It feels like science fiction is becoming reality right before our eyes.
I know what you mean. The speed of these advances is incredible. It can be hard to keep up, but it's also a really exciting time to be alive. We're witnessing technologies being born that could totally transform our world.
I think you're right. Okay, well, we've covered a lot in this part, from neurosymbolic AI to shape-shifting robots and bionic limbs. But before we go any further, there's one more thing I wanted to touch on. AI and creativity.
Yeah. The intersection of AI and art is a really interesting and quickly developing space. We're seeing AI being used to create music, paintings, sculptures, even poetry.
I've seen some of that AI-generated art online, and some of it is seriously impressive. But can AI really be creative? Or is it just, mimicking what humans do?
That's a question a lot of people are debating right now. Some people think that AI is just a tool, a fancy paintbrush or musical instrument, and that humans are still the real creative force. But others think that AI could actually be creative on its own, coming up with totally new ideas and ways of expressing things that humans would never have thought of.
I'm kind of leaning towards the second idea. Some of the AI-generated art I've seen is so unique and unexpected, it's hard to imagine a human mind coming up with it.
It's definitely pushing the boundaries of what we consider art. And it brings up some interesting questions about what creativity actually is. Is it something only humans can do? Or can machines be creative too? These are questions we'll keep wrestling with as AI gets more advanced.
It's a really fascinating debate. I'm sure we'll talk about it more in future deep dives. But for now, I think we've reached the end of this segment. We've explored some truly mind-bending advancements in AI and robotics, and I'm so curious to see what the future holds.
Me too. And before we move on to our last part, I want to remind everyone that we'll be talking more in depth about some of the ethical considerations around these advancements. Things like bias, privacy, job displacement, and how to develop AI responsibly.
Yeah, those are all super important conversations we need to be having. So stay tuned for our last part, where we'll tackle those head on. And we are back for our final segment of the deep dive. It's been, wow, a whirlwind tour of the world of AI and robotics, hasn't it?
It really has. Everything we've talked about, it's just amazing how these advancements are pushing the limits of what we thought was even possible. It's exciting and, yeah, maybe a little bit daunting, too.
Absolutely. I think it's time to talk about the ethical side of all this, the implications of AI and robotics. Yeah. The stuff we've been dancing around a bit in previous segments.
Right? It's a big topic.
What are some of the big things we need to be thinking about as this technology keeps advancing?
Well, I think one of the most important is bias. AI systems, they learn from data, and if that data has biases built in, the AI is going to pick those up too. And that can have some really serious real-world consequences.
Yeah, especially in areas like hiring, loans, even criminal justice. I remember reading about cases where AI algorithms used for hiring turned out to be biased against certain groups of people. It's kind of scary to think that AI could make existing inequalities even worse.
It's a real concern. We need to make sure the data used to train AI is representative, that it doesn't have those biases baked in. And we also need ways to identify and fix bias in the algorithms themselves.
I think that makes a lot of sense. What about privacy? AI systems are collecting and analyzing so much data. How do we make sure people's privacy is protected, that their data isn't misused?
Privacy is definitely crucial. We need really strong rules and safeguards to prevent that kind of misuse. We also need to be upfront about how AI is using our data and give people more control over their own information.
That idea of transparency and control, I think that's really important. People are much more likely to trust and accept AI if they feel like they understand what's happening, that their privacy is being respected.
I agree completely. Another big concern is the impact on jobs.
Right, the robots taking our jobs.
Yeah. Well, as AI and robotics become more advanced, they can do more and more of the tasks that humans used to do. It's a valid concern about what happens to the workforce. Are we going to see lots of jobs disappear?
It's something I hear people worry about a lot. So what can we do about it?
We need to focus on retraining and upskilling the workforce, giving people the skills they need for the jobs of the future.
Which are likely to involve working alongside robots and AI, right?
Right. And we also need to think about policies, like maybe a universal basic income that can provide a safety net for people who might be displaced by automation.
It's not just about replacing jobs then. It's about making sure everyone benefits from these new technologies.
Exactly. And finally, we have to talk about the responsible development of AI. We have to make sure these systems are aligned with human values, that they're used for good, and that they don't cause harm. And that means ongoing discussions and collaborations between researchers, policymakers, and the public.
It's a really complex issue, but I think you're right. These are conversations we can't avoid. We have to develop AI with a sense of responsibility and a commitment to ethical principles.
Absolutely. The future of AI, it's not set in stone. We have the power to shape it, to make it a future that benefits all of us.
That's a great way to put it. Well, as we wrap up our deep dive into this incredible world of AI and robotics, I'm left feeling both, awestruck and a little bit cautious at the same time.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
It's remarkable what we're seeing, but we have to be thoughtful and responsible as we move forward.
Absolutely. It's a turning point in history, and the decisions we make now, they're going to have a huge impact on the future of AI and how it shapes our world.
So to everyone listening, we urge you, stay informed, stay engaged, and keep asking those tough questions. The future of AI is in our hands. Let's make sure it's a future we can all be proud of.
Thank you so much for joining us on this journey. Until next time, keep exploring this incredible world of AI and robotics.